Hey guys, it's another edition of Welcome to Broadcasting. Thanks for joining us today. We've got a great show today for you.
We're actually going to be talking a little bit about TV. We've been talking about radio on our previous episodes, but today we're going to talk about some of the great local kids shows that we all grew up on in Iowa here. Gary, you grew up in a different TV market that I did, so you have some kids shows, stories to tell that I didn't get to experience when I was a kid, and vice versa. I have one that you didn't get to experience. So,
well, let's remind people. Yeah, let's remind people that, especially the younger audience, and of course the older audience, like ourselves, I'd say 50, 55 plus, would remember that the FCC back in, I think, the late 50s required local television stations to have kids programming on a certain number of hours a week. Just think about that. You had to do this. So with that came some really fun creativity, and we were the benefactors of it. Being a kid in the 60s and 70s, even early 80s, some of these shows went to were just fantastic. A lot of them in the morning, and then again after school, some of them were. So it was really cool.
And often with interactivity too, and we'll talk about that. These shows recorded with studio audiences in many cases, and like you said, it was an FCC mandate. But this is also a throwback to the good old radio and the good old TV that we remember, where there was a strong local focus. Right now, most TV stations, about all they do is a newscast or two, and that's pretty much all the local they do, with some exceptions there. But boy, back then, they were doing a lot of that local content and like the kids' content. This was must-see TV circa 1970, folks. You're going to love it.
So my earliest beginnings, of course, we don't care about showing our age on this program. We just lay it out there. I'm going to tell you dates and how old I was. I don't care, because some of you either are going to laugh or relate to it. So I'm good with either one of those two things. So it's 1969, and I'm 4, and I lived in Fort Dodge, Iowa. Fort Dodge back then was a cool place to grow up, believe it or not. I know it's got a bad rap nowadays, but then it was a great place to grow up, and they had their own television station. Before 1977, it got hit by a tornado. There it is there. You might recognize that building now, people in Iowa, based on that used to be the Iowa Central Community College dorms, the 2 buildings there. Now, in back of it, you can see there's a tower, and of course, the vintage aerial thing kind of gets in the way there. But that was where the place was, where KVFD television was. And in 1969, my mom, love her to death, got me involved on Romper Room. And from what I understand, and help me out with this, I think you'll agree that I think Romper Room was every market pretty much in the United States had a local Romper Room. I know Chicago, maybe WLS, I'm guessing. I know the big markets even had it. I know Bozo the Clown was kind of like that a little bit too, but Romper Room was way more popular. And Miss Janet, you can see her autograph in the bottom. I got a little story about her because I'm 4. I don't remember a whole lot about it, but I do remember Miss Janet. And one day, she evidently didn't have a ride to the television station, and my mom and I picked her up, and I was in awe. I thought she was like Marilyn Monroe. I mean, she was pretty young and needed a ride to the station, and I just about couldn't even say anything. I was 4, and again, they had little songs and things, and it was definitely for a younger 4 to 7-year-old demo. So it's funny. And again, this is the time, Curtis, where a lot of moms, let's face it, stayed home with their kids.
That's right.
It was kind of a partial babysitting service for the moms and give them a break and do the household chores without having to mess with these little 4-year-old kids. So it was a great thing. It was a win-win.
Yeah. Romper Room, you're exactly right. Different TV markets had different misses. Mine that I grew up was Miss Peggy out of the Quad Cities Romper Room. Did you ever watch where she looks through her magic mirror, and did she ever say your name?
I'm glad you brought that up. I don't remember, but I do remember because on television, of course, it looked like magic because she'd have the mirror that was solid, and then she'd put that down. Then a swirly thing would appear on the screen for the home viewer, and then all of a sudden she'd see through it. It would be open, and she'd say, "Hi, Bill. I also see Sherry, and I see Gary, and I see Curtis." And it just made everybody feel so good inside as a 4-year-old. It was cute.
I remember watching Romper Room mainly to see if she'd ever say my dang name, and I don't think she ever did. Curtis is not a real common name. Certainly, there were a lot more Garys in the world in 1969 than there were Curtises, but I don't remember her ever saying my name. I don't hold it against her, by the way.
You may be entitled to compensation.
You may be entitled to compensation. Yes. Contact the attorneys of Dewey, Cheatham, and Howe, and we'll get your money as soon as possible. Oh, goodness. So you got to be on Romper Room.
So, yeah, I mean, I don't have that many memories of it. I do remember the last thing I remember was, gosh, if I could remember the dumb song. Of course, I don't want to sing either, but it was about going up and down on the what would they call the stick with the horse's head on top of it?
Oh shoot!
It had a name. Everyone's yelling. What?
Hobby horse, isn't it?
No, I think a hobby horse was something you jump up and down on. I don't remember. Our audience knows, and they're all yelling right now.
Horse with it was a stick with a horse's head on one end. I had one. Everybody had one. That was your pretend horse.
Here we go, loop-de-loo. I don't remember what the song was.
Here we go, loop-de-loo.
Something. That was one of them.
That was one of the songs. Yeah. I don't remember the horse one, but yeah, there were always these little kids. And even when our kids were little, Gary, they had, still lots of shows like that. That was the heyday of Nickelodeon, and they had a bunch of shows like that for kids. And, those are earworms that my kids can still remember. In fact, I was in the car with one of my sons here, who's now 40 years old, and we're going along, and all of a sudden he starts singing this song from some kid's show. And I'm like, where did that come from? He goes, I don't know. It just popped into my head. Yeah. It must have been something on one of those shows we used to watch on Nickelodeon. So.
Yeah. It'll come to my head when I fall asleep tonight, right before. That's usually when the brain works the best.
Yeah. It's usually when the nightmares start to approach too. So,
what's next? The second show is what?
I think we're going to talk about the Floppy Man.
Oh, a lot of people who lived in Central Iowa remember Dwayne. Of course, he never went by Dwayne on the show, as I remember. But everybody remembers Floppy. Floppy was on... I think the NBC, was it on WHO?
Yeah, I think it was on WHO. Yep.
We don't want to mess that up. I don't think it was on KCSCI.
Well, I'm going to look it up right now on my notes. But
I know it wasn't on WOI. We'll get to WOI in a minute with Mary Lou's Magic Window. But Dwayne, that poor guy, let's say something negative first. Kind of a sad thing is he passed away at, I think, 54 jogging, which was kind of a shocker. He was a young guy. But the great thing about Floppy, it was on around noon, as I remember, and they'd play a cartoon of all things. Can you imagine playing cartoons at noon? So he would introduce them. And, of course, he'd have, I don't know, I'm going to guess anywhere between 15 and 20 kids. A lot of Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts, Webelos, that kind of thing would be guests on the show. And you'd line up, and you'd be ready to tell Floppy your joke. And the joke was, Curtis, the joke of the joke was – every single day, and I'm not exaggerating, every single day you would hear a kid that would say the hot rod joke. Why did the man put the car in the oven? Because he wanted a hot rod. And Floppy would act like he heard that for the first time every single day. And of course, the other one was why did the chicken cross the road? Because he wanted to get to the other side. I mean, just the most worst jokes. But the kids had to memorize this. You got to realize they didn't think it was funny. They didn't even know that it was not funny. They were just coached by mom and dad, probably. And a lot of times you'd hear the hot rod joke 4 times in a row. So it was great. It was pretty awesome TV.
And Dwayne just sat there and absorbed it all.
Yeah, and he had the best laugh. Of course, a ventriloquist, of course. And Floppy had the best laugh. Man, that laugh, if you heard it once, you've got it in your brain the rest of your life.
I was not exposed to Floppy. I didn't know anything about it until I moved to Central Iowa many, many years later. And people that I know that grew up here talked about it. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Oh, the Floppy, Dwayne and Floppy. I don't know what you're talking about. What is going on here? And
I think of it, it's 108 today in Phoenix. I'm going to ask my wife, do you know why I put the car in the oven? I wanted a hot rod.
There wasn't much show. It was WHO. I looked it up.
Yeah,
so
I thought
WHO
it was,
he was on. Yeah,
but there wasn't much show yearly. I mean, I hope he had another job because he didn't work that long.
Dwayne Ellett was his full name. Yep. Started doing it in 57, and then did it for 30 years. So
can you imagine 30 years of the hot rod joke?
God bless him. I'm sure he learned to snuff that out of his memory after a while. But that was a show that Central Iowa kids were glued to every time it came on. And
it also says on here Picture Magazine, if you remember that, a part of the Des Moines Sunday Register.
Yeah, I do remember that.
Had put Dwayne and Floppy on the front cover. You may remember that. I bet there's some people who actually saved the copy of that.
I asked AI about Floppy Show, and what I guess it said: the riddle that never gets old. The hot rod joke is one of those perfect bits for kids' local TV.
And let me correct myself. He passed away at 64, not 54.
Okay.
So 64 years old, he was jogging and died of a heart attack, just to be accurate about that.
Wow.
But what a great guy. A lot of great memories of him. Great man.
You had another one, too, we were going to talk about. What was it? Miss somebody? Or no, the Magic Window.
The Magic Window. That's also the same market. This one out of WOI in Ames, Iowa. And gosh, I hope I get this right, but I think this was a morning thing. I remember this being a morning thing. And it was kind of a complicated show for a kid in that she had the puppets up there. Again, please, if you guys remember the names of these puppets, write them down below us. We're going to put this on YouTube.
In the comments, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, because I don't remember and then they had this show that was in black and white with chipmunks and gerbils and guinea pigs, and they'd talk. That was another thing that it was a film. And then also, this is where I got introduced to another black and white cartoon that they'd play, was Astro Boy. I loved Astro Boy. But Mary Lou was a kind soul. I have some stats on her too, but she did it. Again, another show that just was on and on and on and on. Let's see here. Mary Lou. Well, I don't remember when she went. I want to know how long she did it.
Mary Lou.
I think, Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember Felix the Cat. Felix the Cat was on there. I found her on here. Okay, here it is. She did the show from 1954 to 1994.
Wow.
So she actually, 40 years. So this is why this stuff was a part of so many people's childhood. I mean, that's what, 3 generations, maybe 4 generations. That's nuts.
Crazy.
I mean, shows now get canceled after a year. And this is local TV. Can you imagine the commitment of doing that show for 40 years?
Yeah.
That's amazing.
And, there was a show that I didn't really get in too much into when we were talking about doing this show, because it wasn't really a kid's show, but it was very much a local show growing up in the Quad Cities area. And that was Chuck Akery's Creature Feature.
Oh, yeah.
Every Saturday night at like 10:30, and they would show a really bad old monster movie. And it was these guys dressed up like vampire. There was one was a vampire, I believe, a Frankenstein and a werewolf. And Chuck Akery was a home improvement guy, and it was his show, and he would self-siding in between the clips of these monster guys, the little local hosts running around doing silly things, and then showing clips of the movie. But I bring that up because one time I was living in a little town called Welton in eastern Iowa, and they raised money for the fire department by playing the Chuck Akery All-Stars. And it was these guys that came to the gym in Grand Mound dressed in, or in Welton, I should say, dressed in their, werewolf costume and the vampire, and they played basketball. And it was so silly. I don't remember much about it, but I remember going to that game. But that was another it was aimed at children, clearly. But
sure.
I remember watching it when I was into my teens, even when I think they stopped doing it. But because, hey, where else did you get to watch a Japanese monster movie back in the day?
So let's move into Eastern Iowa. The kids that grew up like Curtis in the Eastern Iowa market, which you had 2 different markets, really. You had the Quad Cities, and then you had Cedar Rapids, Waterloo.
Yep. And I'm most embedded. Most of my brain matter is concentrated on a couple of the shows in the Quad Cities market. I'm just going to end this for now. That I was exposed to. Romper Room, we talked about that. I watched Romper Room, the Quad City version of it. And most of the time when I was growing up, we were watching Davenport Quad City TV stations. So the other one that was big then was, oops, sorry about that. I meant to add this guy here. That's Captain Ernie. And
not Ronald McDonald. Ignore him.
Ronald showed up on the shows where they were giving away hamburgers. But Ronald McDonald.
So Curtis, did Captain, what was his name? Captain Ernie.
Captain Ernie.
Did he wear that same outfit every time, or?
Yes, he did. Yep.
Wow.
So, story of Captain Ernie. Captain Ernie, his name is Ernie Mims. He's passed about 15 years ago, and he inherited that show. It was previously, and I had to look this up. It was Captain Vern and Captain Don and Captain Ken. This showboat show where they show cartoons in the afternoon, been going on since the early 50s. Well, Captain Ernie came on in 1964, and he was the guy until, I got into my teen years almost, that was doing this show. And it was like a fake riverboat captain. And of course, Quad City is right on the Mississippi River, and he would dock, and he had this cast of characters and puppets and all that kind of stuff. But one of the cool things about him, as you can see there, he had a studio audience. And the studio audience was somewhere in the studio audience. I couldn't find it was actually me or not, but I was one of these little kids. I got to go to this show. And I remember very vividly sitting here on these bleachers and Captain Ernie coming over, because he'd come over and talk to the kids. As I was telling Gary before we got going here, this little kid on the end, on the bottom row, at first glance, I thought it was me, but I'm pretty sure it's not. But what was cool about it, I remember that I was so excited we got to go. I went with my brother, Roger, and my mom took us, and she sat out. There was other chairs out beyond where the cameras are, where the parents could be, and the kids were up on these little bleachers. And I was just so excited because they told us we were going to get McDonald's hamburgers and fries. And I was just like sitting there the whole time waiting for the show to get over, thinking they're going to bring out these trays of McDonald's hamburgers, which were a huge treat in my house back then.
Oh, huge.
And how I was so let down when all they did is bring us this little gift certificate for a free hamburger, I can't eat
and
this. French fries.
Hey, where's my burger? Yeah.
Exactly. So, and I remember pestering my mom on the way home. Can we stop? No, we'll do that another time. She wanted to get back home. She wanted to get home and make dinner for everybody because it was like 3:30 in the afternoon. And I was so mad. I felt like I'd really been robbed. But Captain Ernie was quite a character. And like I mentioned, on some of the shows, he would have Ronald McDonald on, especially whenever there was Ronald McDonald, when they were giving away McDonald's to the kids. One of the most interesting and kind of tragic parts of this story, Gary, with Captain Ernie, was that he, many shows of that era, he did, let me see here, 4,000 some shows. Oh, I'm sorry. He did 2,600 live episodes of Captain Ernie's Showboat. None of them were archived. Zero, nada, nulch.
Oh, sad.
Nulch. There is not a single episode that lived. All that had lived on are these still photos. Whereas you talk about the one we'll talk about next, Dr. Max, and I believe Floppy Show, they're archived. They're still, those are out there in the world. Wartburg has a big catalog of some of them. I can't remember one of them. I can't remember which, but yeah. So that's Dr. Max is the one we're going to talk about next, and I'm going to take this off because we don't have any.
Well, and going back 1 second, I just looked it up. You are correct on the hobby horse with the horse's head and a stick is a hobby horse. And the song that I remember now was "Come with me and gallop and gallop and gallop. Come with me and gallop," and then you jump around all the What a great memory.
Yeah, and you see that earworm's still there from 50 years ago.
It's just the 60-year-old brain that took a little while to come.
Yeah. So I grew up.
So what's next?
We're going to talk about Dr. Max. Now we're in the Cedar Rapids market. Now, I didn't have much exposure to Dr. Max. We couldn't get the Cedar Rapids. Remember, this is pre-cable, right? So you got your TV stations with rabbit ears. And to get a Cedar Rapids station where I was growing up in far eastern Iowa, you had to play some real tricks or have a rooftop antenna. So
you're kind of in between, but being a little more to the Quad Cities. And the only reason I know about Dr. Max is because my grandmother lived near Waterloo in a little town called Denver, Iowa, the mile-wide city. That's what they go by. But Dr. Max came on at like 3:30. So when my dad would take off work early to go see Mom on a Friday, we would catch the show. And of course, they had the clown named Mambo. Yeah. Before the song Mambo number 5, there was a guy named Mambo. And I'm just going to say it, Mambo was old. I mean, Mambo was old in 1980.
Yeah.
I think he lived well into his 90s, but you can tell even with the makeup, he was an older fellow. But they put on a really good show too. You had two people. I don't remember much about it either, to be honest, but it was a great show. And it was again, one of those, it was on TV probably for 30 years again. And I think, look it up yourself at home, but I'm guessing that it didn't end till the early 80s.
Yeah. Dr. Max Hahn was his name. He did it from 1961 to 1981. So a good 20-year run there. And you were talking about Mambo the Clown. I doing a little research on this. He came across as a really great accidental character. And the story is that during a live show, a prop was dropped on the floor off camera and it made a loud noise. And Dr. Max said, "Keep quiet, Mambo." Well, children started writing to him saying, "When are you going to show Mambo?" So they had to come up with a character. So he asked a friend of his who was a local musician to come on the show as Mambo. So this guy worked at the Quaker Oats factory. And so he had to get off work, go to the studio, get dressed up as the clown to do his little 30 minutes of TV, get back off his regular clothes and go back to work. So that's how Mambo came about. So he probably was just, this guy who'd been doing, magician stuff on the side and had a little exploration into the world of broadcasting entertainment. As I was looking at this, go ahead.
I was going to say that the only memory that I have of it is it was very involved. It was very, the kids got to interact more than any other show.
Yeah. So I mentioned Max Hahn was Dr. Max, right? And when I first read about this, because again, not being exposed to it a lot, it was like, dang, that name is familiar. That name is familiar. And then I thought to myself, well, wait, there was Carrie J. Hahn, who was the Iowa Traveler from the Cedar Rapids station for very many years. And I'm like, are they related? But they're not. Do you remember Carrie J. Hahn?
Oh, yes. Yes. I had him on my radio show a couple of times. The Iowa Traveler.
Yeah. Not related.
No.
From different areas of the country. So yeah. They canceled the show in 1981 when WMT at the time focused more on news programs and also cited the shorter attention span of children. They thought they were short in 1981. That's what's funny to me.
That is funny.
Those are some of the ones that, we remember. There were plenty of other ones. And, I bet we'll get plenty of people commenting on it. And please do. If you remember a local TV character like that.
Yeah, the ones that we forgot about or your own memories. Maybe you were on the show. Tell us everything you know. This is one of our more exciting shows, I think, to share and to interact with you on. So,
and we didn't talk about some of the nationally syndicated ones like Bozo Circus, right? Remember watching Bozo, but he was like big time, man. He was like in the syndicate or something. And
and when I was older, maybe like in sixth grade, I love the cartoons like Bullwinkle and Tennessee Tuxedo and all those other Fractured Fairy Tales. If you remember that one, that was always my go-to at 7:30, 7:45 before I left for school.
Oh, absolutely. I did forget to say one thing about Captain Ernie Mims. He later, after the show started, he became their meteorologist.
Really?
Definitely good times in the mornings and the afternoons when you were a kid here in Iowa. We want to thank everybody again for joining us here on our latest episode of Welcome to Broadcasting. I told Gary to get out of here, so he's gone. Just me, ending it solo for this time. We'll see you next time here on Welcome to Broadcasting.